Hi there, welcome back. I'm Kylie, if you're new around here, and I am on a personal journey with lipedema, Hashimoto's, and I've had VSG, so gastric sleeve surgery, and I'm currently carnivore. So these are all the things that I'm doing to try and improve my health any way that I can. So today I want to talk about the things that I'm putting together in my head that are just poison for the lipedema. I'm finding more and more studies or things that people have said that these things are not great. So as I always do with myself, I test things because we're all completely unique, and what works for me to help my issues will be completely different for what helps yours. But we all have that journey to take of figuring out what is going to be a yes in our life and what's going to be a no, and potentially just a no for now in our life. So the 4 things that I am struggling with, I have them from time to time. I love each and every one of them, but very clearly they do not help the lipedema, and they are dairy, love it, and it's no good for thyroid as well, so there's a double whammy for me, but I still love it. Grains are just divine, in doesn't matter what kind of grains they are. Salt, I love me some salt, and I can't work out the whole you need salt for your adrenals but salt is bad for a lipedema thing. Working my way through that. And the 4th one, which I've talked about and I've pretty much conquered this one, is seed oils. I've conquered it from a perspective of actually cooking with seed oils. I don't do that anymore, but there's still seed oils that show up in some products that I use. So let's break them all down and I'll tell you what I'm doing, and maybe you can share what you're doing and whether or not you're avoiding these things as well from potentially the research that you're doing. And let's see if we can't come up with great ideas instead of these items together. Okay, let's talk about dairy. Now, dairy has never been great for thyroid disease, so it's always been something in the background for me, not something I've generally eaten on a daily basis. Let's think about the fact that dairy contains something in it which keeps you addicted to it. It's an opioid, it's a casein, it's a case, I'll put it on the screen, case of morphine or something or other. And that's what makes it addictive, and why when you start eating cheese, you can't stop eating cheese. Or generally when you speak to vegans, the last animal product that they can give up is cheese, because that's really, really concentrated. It's like in cheese and ice cream and sour cream, that kind of thing. It's that casomorphine has been concentrated by like 10 times. So it's pretty full on and very hard to give up. And it makes you feel lovely and it tastes so good and all the things. But dairy or milk is from a cow. Okay, so we're talking about traditional dairy. We're not talking about dairy substitutes here. That milk is designed to grow a baby cow really, really quickly. So one would assume it's going to do the same thing to us. Doesn't matter how good it tastes. When weight is an issue, which it is for anyone probably watching this, then dairy is not our friend when it comes to weight gain, weight loss, inflammation, that kind of thing. There's studies, I'll pop one on the screen, there's studies that show that it increases inflammation in the body. So from a lipedema standpoint, dairy is just not great. I do notice when I have cheese more than a day in a row, I might have it sprinkled over some mince or something like that a couple of days in a row, I notice I don't feel as good with it. I'm still battling it, don't get me wrong, I'm human just like you are, but I know it's one of those things that should be on my no list. Even yogurt. I had yogurt the other day and literally, I'm not kidding, it put a kilo on overnight. Within a day or two of not eating the yogurt, it was gone again, but that would have been inflammation, I'm assuming, because there was nothing else I ate that day. And it was a treat because I don't normally have the dairy. It was delicious. Is it worth the heaviness? Is it worth the weight? Is it worth, all of that? Probably not. And it will remain a treat for me because, I'm human. I'm going to have those treats now and again. I am not in a phase of my life where I feel like I need to be absolutely pure and have no joy. That's just me. So tell me where you're at with that. I would love to know. Okay, let's talk about grains. And if you're in the pro-grain category or group of people, don't come for me. But I do know, and I have seen enough studies that grains are toxic to the lymphatics. And gluten is no good for thyroid disease anyway. It mimics thyroid. The molecules look very similar to the thyroid. So if you're eating anything that exacerbates an immune response and you're having gluten on top of that, it's going to automatically go after your thyroid because it looks the same. So that's not ideal anyway. So all of these things pretty much are the same for thyroid disease and lipedema, which is lucky for me, but it kind of also tells you that, these are quite connected, right? Same things make it worse, same things make it better. Grains actually cause a massive insulin spike. They raise your blood sugars. They act just like sugar in the body. And if you don't believe me on that one, there's a guy on YouTube somewhere. He's called Insulin Resistant 1, I think is the name of his channel. And he does shorts every day where he wears a continuous glucose monitor on his arm and he just tests different food. It's insane. It's like he just tests all these. And while we're all very different with what will affect us and what will cause an insulin spike in our system, it just shows you how easy grains rise the insulin in your system. And we don't want insulin in our system, and that causes so many problems. From what I can gather with everything that I watch, learn, read, if we can keep our insulin steady, that will have a knock-on effect in pretty much every other hormone in our body. I think that if that was our one goal, if we just ignored thyroid disease, if we just ignored lipedema, all of that, and we just focused on keeping our insulin level, so that's keeping our blood sugars low and steady, then I think that we'd all feel heaps better. That's just my theory, but that seems to be across the board, no matter what kind of protocols I'm watching on YouTube or no matter what kind of things I'm reading and researching. If we can do that, that makes a world of difference. And grains, when it comes to insulin spikes, it's like sugar. A slice of bread is like sugar in our body, no matter how good it tastes. And that guy that I said, he actually tested white bread against sourdough, traditionally made sourdough, and also I think he did sourdough from the supermarket. They all pretty much cause the same spike of insulin in his body. So even the homemade, sourdough from scratch made the same insulin spike, still behaved like sugar in the body, which is like a massive aha for all of us, that it doesn't matter how we prepare it, it's still an insulin spike and it still raises our inflammation, our blood sugars, and all of that kind of thing that we need to avoid with lipedema and thyroid disease. Let's face it, if your body is always fighting, which our bodies are, my body is always fighting, why give it more enemies to fight against? And that's what we're doing when we add things like grains and dairy into our system. It's just more things for it to fight, which makes us tireder, which makes just life that much harder, I think, so far, in my understanding of all of this. Now, number 3, salt. I love salt, and I've always come to understand that salt, when we crave salt, it's telling us that our adrenals are struggling. The other thing is with salt is up here where I live, where it's extremely hot, and when we move to Asia, where it's extremely hot, electrolytes, I consume electrolytes, which is sodium and salt. But from what I understand in watching the lipedema videos and information, is that salt is terrible for lipedema. I don't know what to do there because we need it, especially when you're sweating a lot. We walk every day and we walk in sometimes really hot weather, and I sweat like crazy, and then I'll have an electrolyte drink. But I don't understand enough about the salt, but everywhere that I look for lipedema and everywhere that I research tells us that salt is not good. It causes inflammation. I'm not sure that it contributes to blood pressure like the old school thought process is. I've seen enough videos saying that, and I say videos, I watch doctors and documentaries, and I'm not talking about just any old person chatting about things like me, like I am, but then I'm just sharing my journey with you in hopes that you can find what you're looking for. So I always recommend that you go off and do your own research depending on your issues. From what I understand from the lipedema doctors that are online, salt is no good for us. I still struggle with that. I don't know how you find the happy medium with the salt if you are sweating a lot and that kind of thing. So if you know more about that than I do, please share. That would be awesome, because I'm still working my way through that one. I don't have a lot of processed foods, so therefore the salt content in the processed foods is minimal, but I do sprinkle salt on my meat. And as I said, I have the electrolyte drinks. I do know that I can't have the electrolyte drinks every day. It would be like maybe once or twice a week I'll have that, and that's enough for me. Any more than that, and I end up with headaches, actually. That's what happens with me. I end up with headaches. It's taken me a while to figure out that that's the response I get from having an electrolyte drink. And I've tried a few different brands, and the one that I use is called Sodi. It's very clean. I know that in America you can get Element, LMNT, Element. We can't get that here in Australia. So Sodi is kind of the equivalent, Sodii. But I do find that I can't have much of it. A couple of times a week and I'm good. I think that's enough to replace what I need at this stage. But yeah, salt might be an issue for you. So I would absolutely start to track that. Maybe go without it for a couple of days, go with it then for a couple of days and track your symptoms and see how it affects you. I always try to hone in on something particular. If you're testing something for yourself, you can't change everything all at once, otherwise you won't know what it is that's made the difference. You've got to kind of go with the same thing day, and then on day 6, change it and add in that one thing and see if that makes a difference. And if it doesn't that first day, then keep it there for a few days. It's the only way that you can figure out for sure what's helping you and what's not helping you. And number 4, the final one, which is also thyroid related, thyroid and lipedema, and I guess any hormonal issues and just general health, is seed oils. And I have a lot of people say, oh, I'm so overhearing about seed oils. There's a reason people keep talking about seed oils. Have you been down the oil aisle? That's really hard to say, the oil aisle of the supermarket lately. There is hundreds of bottles of varieties of oils. We use a lot of oil and it's cheap, the seed oils. So if you're a restaurant that's cooking chips and fries and whatever else you're cooking, deep frying, spring rolls, whatever you're doing, even if you're just cooking your steaks, you're going to buy the cheapest one, right? So that's just common financial sense. However, for our health, it's insanely bad. For lipedema, it's shocking. It interrupts the thyroid pathway. And let's face it, any time that your thyroid or any other hormone in your body, insulin, for example, is out of whack, then that's going to impact lipedema, because lipedema is hormone driven. So if one thing's out, it's going to drive lipedema in some way, shape, or form. And something that's just come to mind is that I've read in a lot of lipedema pages and a lot of lipedema groups, women who have spent the money on having the liposuction and skin removal on their legs only to have it grow back. And that's because they have not changed those triggers, those poisons that they consume. They've had the surgery and gone, wow, that's cool, that's easy, done. And then they just go back to normal. Same thing with gastric sleeve surgery. Why do you think I follow a carnivore diet for the most part? It keeps me on the straight and narrow. Had I continued to eat the way I ate before, which was healthy, but it was highly plant-based and highly carbohydrate-based, because that's what I figured was healthy. For some people it is. For me, it was not. So if you don't change what you're doing, then it's going to come back. The lipedema will come back if you spent, what, $20,000, $30,000 on that surgery. It will come back if you don't acknowledge that there's poisons to our body out there and find out which ones are affecting you. So seed oils is one of those, and it's such an easy thing to remove from your world, from your body, by simply not cooking with it and cooking with ghee and butter and lard and tallow instead. So easy. It's just a habit. It's just getting your head around, oh, not like pouring oil in the pan and simply putting in a little pat of butter or a little bit of ghee or whatever it is. It's just a change in belief system and what seems normal for you. That's all it is. It took me a really long time to feel like putting in a bit of bacon fat after I'd cooked the bacon was normal to cook in, or duck fat or something like that. And I still sometimes think, oh, it would be so much easier to just pour the oil out. But the problem with the seed oils is that they're so high in omega-6s. Now, we're supposed to have a ratio of omega-3 to omega-6s of 1:1. The average ratio is 1:20. In fact, I heard recently, that might be old stats, I heard recently someone say it's more like 1:60, which is insane, but makes sense, because that's why we're all inflamed, because omega-6s are highly inflammatory to our body. It's the omega-3s that's anti-inflammatory, and we're not getting enough of those. So oils are just such a simple way of removing inflammation from your world. I also read the other day that there is not enough olive trees on the planet to support the amount of olive oil on the shelves. And I went, because there's this theory, and it's not just a theory, it's been proven that much of the olive oils in the grocery store are cut with seed oils. Otherwise, how could you buy it so cheaply? You know, the expensive Italian 100%, yep, they're pricey. And that's why, because they're real. So unless you can afford the pricey olive oil, then I would be even avoiding the olive oils. I do, because I can't guarantee that the olive oil I am ingesting, and I can't afford to have it sent off to be tested so that I know that particular brand is good to go. And I don't know about you, if you can do that, more power to you. But how can you risk it? It's such an easy thing to remove for inflammation, heaviness, just feeling horrible, contributing to weight, because the more inflamed we are, the more weight we will gain as well. So seed oils is just one of those things. And look at all your processed foods. As long as you remove processed foods from your diet, which you should not be having anyway. I know it's a struggle. I struggle with it too. But where I can, I just don't touch the processed foods. There are times that they creep in, but I'm pretty swift to get them back out. And that's the upside to having a carnivore diet, is that if you stray, you don't stray too far before you go, oh, pull it back in and back you come. So that's what I've discovered are the 4 major triggers, is my understanding. Besides the normal cakes, lollies, chips, of course they're triggers, but the 4 major triggers that we tend to eat without thinking too much about: grains, dairies, salts, and seed oils. Now, many of the thyroid people in here will have already, for the most part, removed the dairy, but the other things, and maybe the seed oils, but the other things, yeah, it's a tricky area to figure out for your own health and well-being, and to see how they affect your own lipedema symptoms. So I would encourage you to have a baseline of what your symptoms are. I've done this in thyroid school for many years when I work with clients. What's your baseline? Where, for the most part, every day is your symptoms at? Do your knees hurt? Do your legs feel heavy? Do you have a sore shoulder? What's your baseline? Even things like libido, mental health, all of that sort of thing can play a part, because it's all hormones. Hormones are all interconnected. Once you've got a baseline, you've got an inventory of what your body does mostly every day, then you can track it. Then you can test things for yourself and know what actually makes you feel better and what doesn't. Because I can tell you what makes me feel worse or better doesn't mean to say that's going to be the case for you. So I'm really passionate about all of us finding out what affects us individually. And we can only do that by sharing with each other what's working for us and what's not working for us, so that the other person can test it for themselves. And it might be a piece to the puzzle, it may not. But unless we all come together as a community and try and figure out this horrible thing that we've got going on, lipedema, thyroid disease, it's all hormones. So until we figure all this out, we're not going to improve, and we're not going to get close to living the life that we want to live. And I know I want to live a very long life. I only feel like I've just gotten my physical life to where I enjoy walking, where I enjoy getting out and about all day. And I'm on the other side of 50 now, so I want my life to be as long as possible now that I'm actually enjoying it. So this is not about restriction and what I can't have. This is about liberation. This is about freedom. This is about freedom from pain, freedom from inflammation, freedom from mental health and feeling shocking and anxiety and depression and all of that sort of thing that comes along with these hormonal issues. I know, because I've been there. I go through those things still, but generally they come about because I'm eating or consuming the things that my body doesn't want. If you're still on the fence about lipedema and you're not sure if it's something that you've got, I encourage you to watch the video that'll come up on the screen next and let me know if it rings bells for you. And if you've gotten any insight from this video whatsoever, then please subscribe, join the family, and let's try and work out this journey together.